on condition of obedience to doing what God would have us to do. But sometimes, even in, I think he reigned for 52 years, wasn't it?
Yes,
That's a
52.
long time for a king to do. But along the way, something happened. And sometime it happens in our Christian experience along our walk with God. On condition of obedience to doing what God would have us to do. Instance, but sometimes, even in,
he lost his
I think he
power.
reigned for 52 years, wasn't it?
He got out of
That's a
control.
long time for a king to do. But along the way, something happened.
And pride is very,
Sometime
very
it happens in our
dangerous.
Christian
We know
experience
that.
along our
The Bible tells us that pride leads
condition of
to
obedience
something
happens, and in this
16
verse, but
18
sometimes
says
even
pride
in,
cometh
I
his
think he
power.
reigned for
What?
52 years.
He
He
got out of
That's a
control.
long time for a
came
king
in.
to do.
Pride comes
Along
there,
the
so he lost
way,
destruction.
something
And you see all
happens.
throughout Scripture,
Pride
that is very,
sometimes
very
it happens in our
dangerous.
Christian
God
experience
allows man to
along
go.
our
The Bible
walk
tells
come
us
in and just
pride
change
leads
things
to
all.
something
Obedience happens,
happens,
and
and
in
in
times
this
to get
verse,
things right.
18
Sometimes
says,
even
pride
back
cometh
with
his
him.
power.
He reigned for 52 years. He
got out of
That's a
control.
long time for a king to do. Pride comes
along
there,
the
so he
way,
lost it. Something
see
happens.
all throughout Scripture.
Pride is very, very dangerous in our Christian experience. Pride doesn't come in and just change things all. Obedience happens, and in times to get things right.
It didn't say what else pride comes in. Pride was very great.
Pride comes along the way. You don't want to. God has called us to do. This may hurt some people's feelings, not trying to do that, but sometimes where we're not even supposed to be, that God never called us, but we want to be there, and so we push to do that, and this is certainly what happened to the king, as you well know. Overstepping or taking something for granted. We never want to do that in the cause of Christ. So 2 Chronicles 26, 1 through 5, just again, we're not going to read that, but I want you to read it there, and just let's go over it. Talks about the king, says he was 16 years old when he began to reign. Interesting about an early age. I don't know if these 16-year-olds could do maybe what they did then or whatever, but it's very early, isn't it? Very young to begin to reign. Again, 52 years, and he did that which was most of the time what right in the eyes of God. Number 3, he sought God, and as long as he did, God prospered him. And so I can just say that if we get nothing else out, if you do what is right, I guarantee you God will prosper you. We all want to prosper, don't we? We always say we want to be in health. Well, we have to do the right things by the grace of God listed out and certainly in his word. 2 Chronicles 26, just jotted down 16 through 15, it tells how the king became strong. And so I think that would be good for all of us if we want to be strong in the Lord, not in the world, but in the Lord. 2 Chronicles 26, 16 starts out, tells of his downfall. So we can read that. Pride took control. He became I like to say sometimes he became too big for his britches. His head got too big for his crown. We could use other things, but you know, that happens sometime. It even happens in the religious realm, and certainly it should not. We don't want to try to get too big for God, because you know God's bigger than anything that we think we can do. Right. Now, read this verse in 2 Chronicles 26, 16. I just want to read this because I've referred to it here. It said, but when he was strong, talking about the king here, notice, his heart was lifted up to his destruction. For he transgressed against the Lord what?
His God.
His God. He went into the temple of the, oh, notice what he started doing here. God never asked him to go in there. He may have been the king. They had big britches. They had a big crown. God never asked him to go in there, but he's going to go in there, and you know, because when he went in there, because he's going to burn what was incense upon the altar, and I think he had everything which he needed to burn the incense, so he meant business. He went in there, he started to go in there to do it, but what happened?
The priest.
The priest, praise God, some of the priests stopped him and said, hey, you can't go in there. You're not authorized to go in there. So this makes us think about certain things that God has authorized us to do and other things he has not authorized us to do, even in the ministry, my opinion. We have to be very careful about that. Now, the king, he became very angry, like, you can't tell me whether I can go in there and do, what was it, to burn incense? You can't tell me that. Verse 19, the king became very angry. He'd already had the censer in his hand, and notice this, when the king refused reproof, notice what happened. What did God does this sometime. Sometime immediately, God steps in and stops the situation. with the king, immediately he turned leper, right? Leper. He was, oh my, he said leprosy. How long did he have the leprosy?
To the rest of
As
his
the
life.
rest of his life. He thought he'd go in and do what God had not asked him to do, and God said, no, he's not going to. It separated him from the church,
That's right.
separated him from his people. He had to live, as it were, by himself. He was cut off from the house of God because